One Piece chapter 1024. There's so much information about One Piece that's been released this week, over the past couple weeks, even personal messages from Oda thanking us, celebrating the One Piece communities, even saying himself that One Piece is in the end game, like we're in its final stages and we feel like things are being explained, things are being revealed, and you can't help but feel that sense of things are coming to an end. But we're not going to focus on that. It's just something that when you're reading the story and just how sentimental it can make you feel, it's a great feeling. But we're to talk about One Piece chapter 1024. This is the breakdown where we go through every single part and talk about things that we've been thinking about and just expound upon it and throw some fun theories around, right? 1023, in my opinion, was one of the best chapters of Wano so far, period. 1024 isn't quite that because I think necessary things had to happen in this chapter, but it is still really damn good. And we're getting so much lore, and funny enough, the person who really not surprised me, but continues to impress me is Kaido. I know everyone has made a video on Kaido and him being maybe the top villain by the end of Wano, like every single person. And the reason being is because it seems to be true. Kaido is trending in a way that I think for some people is catching them off guard because they had a perception of Kaido. Strong, big, brute, vicious, wants to be stronger than everyone, wants a war, blah, blah, blah. But no, Kaido is a lot more smarter than we thought. He knows a lot more than we thought. He thinks a lot more than we thought, and so now he's a lot more intriguing than we initially thought. So with that being said, hopefully that introduction was a lot more intriguing than you thought, and you will subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Drop a like as well, turn on post notifications so you can stay updated. And without further ado, let's dive into One Piece chapter 1024 because, you know, there's a lot of pertinent information we can get to, but first, the updates. Usopp and conquers Haki. Now, there are a lot of people that would tell you, who are Usopp fans, that Usopp will get conquers Haki. Usopp is the god, Soga King is a god. They will tell you this night and day. What I've realized about Usopp, which is interesting, he has a lot of die-hard fans. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, he has a lot of people that really do not like him at all.
That is blasphemous!
And typically, when someone talks about Usopp, I can immediately tell which side they're on. Even if it's an unbiased statement, I can just tell via tone, via cadence that you do not like Usopp or you just adore Usopp. I used to stand on the side of not liking Usopp, believe it or not, but he's grown on me. I think post time skip, I had a lot of expectations for him. I expected him to grow out of this fear that he had, and I was so disappointed in Dressrosa when he ran away from Robin, but things eventually worked out, and I think slowly but surely he's shown his resolve post time skip. I think he's an absolute necessary character in the crew, and he's the person, believe it or not, if he passed away, would have the most impact on the crew. So hopefully Usopp doesn't die. Is just giving him his flowers right now because he doesn't get a lot of it often. So him being the introduction to this chapter, I just wanted to highlight Usopp for a little bit because he is a cool character. So Usopp's goal is to somewhat intimidate the opposition. This goes well with his character because Usopp is an amazing liar. Again, a lot of his lies so far, they've come true. Whether or not he's speaking them into existence, but they are coming true. And Usopp having conquers Haki, as far-fetched as it may seem to be to some people, I'm starting to believe that it could be a thing that Oda teases at the end of the story, where Usopp is walking by some people and then they end up passing out. Usopp uses conquers Haki, doesn't even realize it, then One Piece ends. Well, not necessarily, but you know what I mean. Come to find out, the reason why people were being knocked out was because of Big Mom. And she was fighting on the same floor, and people were passing out just from being within proximity of Big Mom. I mean, she is enormous for one, but she's very strong. I liked seeing Speed and Tama here. I mean, it feels like ages ago, right? When Speed was taking Tama away from the battlefield. Now they're here on the battlefield supporting the Straw Hats, and Speed has grown on me. I actually do like Speed a lot. It's funny seeing the Straw Hats, Nami and Frankie, talk about Momonosuke and Shinobu because they have no idea what's going on right now, right? They're trying to get a hold of Shinobu, and of course they couldn't, but Shinobu has already aged Momonosuke into an adult. I cannot wait for them to see an adult Momonosuke and see their reaction to it. Frankie is correct though. No news is good news because everything is progressing, not necessarily according to plan, but things are progressing. Luffy is back up, Momonosuke is an adult, and everyone is relatively okay, except the Scabbards. Well, some of them, and we're somewhat preparing for the final stage of Wano. It seems that way. Like all the final fights are set up. Right now, the Straw Hats and some of the other people, they're playing fodder control. Law's crew, they've joined the fold, and the goal right now is to keep these people away from these final fights. Brook cannot avoid a bone joke or a skull joke or a joke referencing his appearance or just his status in life. He's birding and he says, well, technically, I guess I've been cremated, right? It's like, it's so Brook and it's so subtle. I didn't realize it the first couple times I read the chapter. Then I read it again and I bust out laughing because I'm like, oh my God, Brook is going to be Brook no matter what, no matter the situation. And it makes me think back to Brook versus Big Mom and just how epic that was, man. Brook was a goat fighting against Big Mom, talking about who plans to die. It was just an amazing moment for Brook. Shout out to Brook, man. Shout out to the other Straw Hats. They don't get a lot of focus, but when they do, I mean, Robin is smiling in Brook's arms right now because she did something spectacular. She took out a Toby Ropo that's worth 480 million berry. She should be smiling and she should be happy. So seeing her in that light, it's very wholesome. Again, something I'd mentioned is that this is the perfect time for CP0 to go after Robin because she is obviously incapacitated for a bit. I'm pretty sure they could take Brook, and they had someone watching her specifically. So we'll see if Oda goes that route, but I think mentioning, or Robin specifically mentioning that she had strong friends to protect her, we have to see moments like that happen where people are going after her and them protecting her or failing, because that would lead to some more really interesting stuff if the Straw Hats lose Robin here. The fire on the 4th floor, we saw heat, and this person, I'm not sure if that's Wire, but we see the Kid Pirates going wild. And in the anime, they've done a spectacular job of characterization for the Kid Pirates and giving them more of a focus. But in the manga, they've been including more shots of them, some small dialogue. So it's good for Oda to remind us that they're a huge part of this battle as well. Of course, Killer and Hawkins, that's still ongoing. We got to get some resolution with that. How is Killer going to figure out exactly how to overcome this? The popular theory is that he cuts off the arm of Hawkins because Kid has already lost his arm. So we'll see what happens with that. Jinbei, what does he do? Because now they're asking him to come to the live floor to help put out the fire and stand their ground against the fodder. I don't know, Jinbei just took out Who's Who with a bounty of over 500 mil, and he's taken some damage, but he's relatively fine. He could maybe mow down a few numbers if they come and try to oppose him, but I'm not sure who else he could fight other than some fodder, just to keep the numbers down again, to keep people away from those major fights. So now we get to Yamato and Kaido. While Oda is showing us that Yamato is doing a great job, like she's contesting her father, Oda is continuously also showing us that she's no match, where, okay, they have a back and forth, Kaido blocks it casually, but when Kaido tries the same thing, she gets blown away. And now Yamato, she's bleeding profusely from her right eye. So the battle is going, and again, she's a Zoan, so she's probably a lot more resilient than the average fighter, but still, she's no match. She said it herself, she can't defeat her father, but she is really damn strong. Now, outside of the fighting, which is really cool, what I was mostly interested in, mostly intrigued by, is the dialogue in this chapter that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Yamato asks Kaido if he's trying to kill her, and he's like, well, yes, this isn't just a family squabble. Like, remember at the beginning of Wano, beginning closer to the beginning of Onigashima, Alti described what was going on as a family squabble. That's why the Toby Ropo, they were sent out to capture Yamato, and now in hindsight it's like, well, based on what she's doing, how could they have captured Yamato? Well, she had the sea stone cuffs on. It would have been a lot easier for them, but in my opinion, I think Yamato is stronger than all of the Toby Ropo. But again, Kaido's talking to Yamato, saying he's not playing around. If you're going to say that you're Odin, that's a heavy name to bear. And looking at the flashback, they've been having this conversation for damn near 20 years, right? Like, they've been having this back and forth for 20 years, where Yamato wants to be Odin, Kaido doesn't approve of it, and then Kaido beats her ass to try to get her in line. At some point, that must become annoying if you're Kaido. Like, your daughter, you want her to grow up and be strong just like you, and she wants to be a samurai, someone that you killed, someone that you respect, but someone that is dead, someone that represents Wano. And it's like, you don't even understand what's going on here, Yamato. Seeing young Yamato was really cool because you're seeing her growth, you're seeing her development and just how she was acting back then. But back then she had conqueror's haki. She knocked out a bunch of fodder around her at a very young age. Again, 20 years ago, so she was probably 8 years old, which for a lot of people we see for conqueror's haki, they unlock it when they were children. So this was cool. When I saw it, I was like, oh damn, Yamato has a lot of potential. Kaido saw the same thing, was like, well, well, that's pretty cool, but stop calling yourself Odin, or you probably should die. Kaido then throws her into a cave with a bunch of samurai, well, 3 samurai. But this goes back to Kaido's character, which is consistent. Also, Kaido still has bandages on from Odin, so this is transpiring probably right after Odin's death, or close enough for Kaido to still have bandages on. But even in the midst of that, he was able to defeat all these samurai that came after him. And even though he called them master swordsmen, he left them with swords, saying, hey, I'm leaving food and I'm leaving swords, do what you may with that. How much confidence do you have to do something like that, where you're leaving master swordsmen with swords and food? So you're not even worried about them doing anything. It's a certain level of controlled arrogance that one can appreciate, especially with the dialogue that we're getting from this chapter. Kaido is shaping up to be a powerhouse, just a momentous character that I can't wait till it all rounds into form, because he has been great so far, guys, especially considering the expectation. Yamato's then calling out to her father when he's walking out of the cave, and she's like, well, what are you doing? You're gonna kill your own child? He's like, well, but I thought you were Odin, which is very harsh considering Yamato's age, but we have to remember Kaido, a Yonko of the seas, maybe not back then, but it's harsh parenting, and I'm sure him growing up or being on the Rocks crew as an apprentice, it was a lot of tough love, and he's giving the same to Yamato. She then had some expectations for the samurai, where she's saying, well, I'm Odin, but I'm also the kid of the man who killed Odin. How would they feel about that? But of course, the samurai of Wano, they've all been shown to be upstanding citizens. For the portion of food that Kaido left, they agreed and they gave it to Yamato. And this callback with the samurai never getting hungry just reminds me of Momonosuke when he said samurai don't get hungry. Of course they are starving, but it's just the discipline that they have. And then there's a tie-in here, right? Yamato, there's always been some strange connection with Otama. Otama, she wanted to go with Ace. Yamato wanted to go with Ace. They had the food thing. Of course, Yamato is Otama spelled backwards. It's weird. Of course, you include a Y, but the dialogue that was interesting is by the individual that was in the cave who said to Yamato, eat up, you were born into quite the family, weren't you? Which is interesting because this guy is obviously a Shimotsuki, so I'm sure he was born into quite the family, right? Somebody raised the question, I forgot who said, why weren't the Shimotsuki the head of Wano, right? The Kazuki, they're at the head of Wano right now. Why wasn't the Shimotsuki? We know Ryuma and what he did for Wano. The Shimotsuki, as heralded as that last name is, we had Yasui who was a Shimotsuki, Oshimaru who was a Shimotsuki, and they served as daimyo to the Kazuki. This shows that even though they have such lineage, they were willing to serve somebody else who they felt was better, which goes well with Zoro and his character, where he's already a master swordsman, right? And he's going to be the world's best swordsman. Zoro would have been a great pirate or bounty hunter on his own, but he decided to serve someone or follow someone else who he deemed was great enough and was deserving of his skills, deserving of his loyalty. So I think this is a brilliant, subtle tie-in of Zoro's character and just showing just what the Shimotsuki represent. Again, that lineage is astounding, yet and still, they serve the Kazuki. No jealousy, not like the Kurozumi where they were trying to start a coup or basically accomplish a coup. They were willing to play their role. So something subtle, but something that I noticed that was really, really cool. So this person, who has an uncanny appearance, looks just like Zoro, slices Yamato's chains. And it seems to be a black blade, but instead of a permanent black blade, it could just be hockey, which I'm leaning towards hockey. But the dialogue also used here where this person says they're nobody important, it's reminiscent to Zoro and him saying nothing happened. And again, people are making the connection with, well, this person saying he's nobody important. Did this person throw away their last name because of the failure that they had by not being able to accomplish what they were trying to accomplish by defeating Kaido, which leads to the last name of Roronoa. It's a very interesting concept, but how does this tie back to Zoro? Well, at this point, again, this should be 20 years ago. Zoro is 1 year old. If Zoro was indeed born in Wano, someone must have taken him to the East Blue, or he just got lost. No, seriously, we're not sure, but it's very possible, very possible this person, Shimotsuki Oshimaru, is Zoro's father, or in some way, the very least, related to Zoro. Possibly an uncle, something of that nature, but everything is too uncanny. They also talk about the battle that Odin predicted, which is really interesting because they were all reading Odin's logbook. So now I'm like, okay, we saw Odin's words where he talks about the battle that will split the seas. And so they make the sacrifice to get Yamato out of there so that she can be available for that fight 20 years from now. For the samurai though, they said 20 years was too long for them to wait. Now, the age of these people, I'm assuming around 40 something years old. The person Oshimaru looked a lot like Zoro when Oda drew him at 40. So I'm going to assume they're around 40, 45, around that age. So they bring break out of this cave like master swordsmen would be expected to do, and I think obviously they lose to Kaido. The tattoo on the back of Uchimaru is really interesting here because it's obviously the Shimotsuki emblem, but I think what's also cool is that he's using 2 swords. So, okay, if we're gonna say this, right, and then the Shimotsuki lineage, they have a bunch of special people that inherit necessary skills, or not saying that being a Shimotsuki means that you're like Indra and Ashura from Naruto, but it's certain people that are born within the Shimotsuki that they carry on the will of the Shimotsuki bloodline. Ryuma was a 1-sword style user. Uchimaru is using 2 blades. And now Zoro, he's Santoryu. He's a 3-sword style user. So everything seems too perfect here. It's like, so at this point, I have to think that they're related, and I can't wait to find out more about the Shimotsuki because Zoro is really tied into this. I plan on covering a theory about how Zoro possibly got to the East Blue using some real Japanese lore, so stay tuned for that. But Yamato, it seems like she's voicing her frustration at the end of this fight, the end of this chapter rather, where she's remembering these samurai that believed in her, the people that accepted her, even after she's the kid of Kaido, the person who killed Odin. And she's asking Kaido these questions that she's probably been wanting to ask him for a while. Why did you steal my freedom? Why did you take Wano's freedom? And Kaido, the response is that there are really no easy answers in this world. You're immature. You don't understand how things work. You have to earn these answers. Now, Yamato being immature, being unaware of things, you can blame that on Kaido for locking her up and basically imprisoning her for not thinking the same way that he does, which isn't the way you should parent, but that's how Kaido is doing things. But Kaido, he's saying you don't understand. You have no idea. You don't come by answers just by asking, Yamato. So as cool as it is, there's a sad backdrop because it's a father and a daughter. They're fighting, and of course Yamato is going to meet her inevitable defeat. I do not see this relationship getting salvaged at all. It seems like it's too far gone. I mean, the clash at the end, the Thunder Bagua clash, it's beautiful. Yamato conquers Haki. Seems like she's using conquers Haki coding. That is spectacular. I mean, that puts Yamato up maybe a tier or 2 that she can use this willingly on command. So the fighting is really cool, but I'm really interested in the dialogue. What's gonna happen from here? Kaido continues to impress us. He doesn't say a lot, right? But he knows more than we think. He understands the world better than we think. And the less drunk he becomes, the more clear his thoughts are, the more dope his speech is. Kaido, stay away from the liquor, all right? Let's get a clear-headed Kaido, and he's been fighting everyone. Give him his props, give him his credit. He is truly the strongest, man. Let's just count down to yourself how many people Kaido has tussled with just in Onigashima. Crazy. So guys, give me your thoughts. How do you feel about all this? What do you think about the fight? What do you think about the dialogue? What do you think about Uchimaru and the Shimotsuki? But give me your thoughts. Make sure to like the video if you did. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Follow me on Twitter at BragoDAce. Follow me on Instagram at BragoD.ace. Thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you guys all so much. Guys, again, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
I start doubting me, I felt lost.